Josh comes in and says, it's kind of crazy how out of touch Microsoft is with gamers. Hellblade 2 revealed alongside the Xbox Series X, and it's definitely not that system seller must-play game. Same with Redfall being that one more thing announcement. I don't know. Yeah, well, here's the thing about it, because you're not wrong, Josh. You're absolutely right. I don't think it's so much. I mean, Microsoft is probably out of touch, certainly. I'm not going to say probably. Microsoft is certainly out of touch to a certain extent. But I just think I think Microsoft is almost like cursed or something, man. Where, like, I don't even think I could blame them for thinking that Hellblade is going to be like, yeah, this is it, baby. Like, this is going to be our single-player system seller, just like Sony has. And then you flash forward like nearly 4 years later, and it's like, actually, it's kind of the same thing that the first game was, just much, much, much prettier. It's 8 hours. It's kind of like what Sony did with the Order 1886. And you're Microsoft, you're probably like, oh. And yeah, the Redfall situation, I'll tell you what that is to me. The Redfall situation, that is Microsoft being out of touch with their own development teams. And I say this because I don't think Microsoft had any idea what the fuck was going on with with Redfall. I think Microsoft may have found out with the rest of us because they bought them, and I think Microsoft was terrified to even attempt to go hands-on with any of the studios that they just bought from Bethesda out of fear of backlash, out of fear of upsetting the leadership of Bethesda. And they did. Pete Hines left Bethesda, and it's very obvious. Go read the emails. Pete Hines left because he said, fuck Microsoft, dude. Fuck these guys. I'm out. That is clear as day. And it's just like, I'm pretty sure with a game like Redfall, Microsoft just had no idea. Yeah, that to me is interesting. If the developers wanted to cancel Redfall, like the developers knew, like, this is a shit show, this is a bad idea, but Microsoft, if you're in like Phil Spencer's position, you're probably like, listen, guys, I just convinced Microsoft to buy you for $7.5 billion. Like, we got to ship, like, we have no games for the first 6 months. No, for the first 9 months. We have no games for the first 9 months. After going a year with no games, we need to ship. Like, I'm telling you, Redfall was, it was a pick your poison situation. Let me take back what I said. I think Microsoft knew about Redfall. They probably did know, but they just felt like, look, it's either we go nearly 2 years with nothing, or we fucking throw this game out there and pray to God it's not as bad as we think it is. And it was as bad as they thought it was, dude. Like, that's very much like, to me, that is the equivalent of, all right, we got to throw this Hail Mary pass, but instead, like, the fucking QB gets sacked and he fumbles it, and then the other team actually picks up the ball and scores a touchdown. So it's like, you could have just lost, by just being outscored, by just lose the game. It's fine. It's over. But they had to lose it in the most embarrassing way possible. It's like, okay, like, you should have just taken a knee, bro. That's kind of my view of the situation with Redfall, looking back on it, because that was so weird. And I forgot, you know what? Oh my God, that makes it even crazier that Josh, you mentioned that Redfall was the one more thing moment. You're right. And I remember everybody was acting hyped about it. And I was just like, bro, listen, I'm not trying to hate. And because you know how it is. Anytime MBG is skeptical of Microsoft, he's just hating. And that's fine. My son is losing his mind out there for some reason. He's like, why are you talking about Redfall? But dude, I remember watching that trailer, and I was trying so hard not to just be like, guys, like, what the fuck is this? Because people were so happy about it. And I'm like, look, man, it's just a CG trailer. Like, I said to people that I had to wait to see the game. And to be fair though, like, when we did see gameplay trailers of Redfall, I actually did start to think like, oh, okay, this might be good. Like, and the big allure for me was because I'm a big Left 4 Dead fan. And when they first started actually showing gameplay, I was like, you know what? Maybe this could be like a Left 4 Dead with vampires. I'm like, that could be cool. And then I started hearing people saying that, like, no, this is nothing like Left 4 Dead. Or I think it was even the developers. They were like, oh, no, this isn't like Left 4 Dead. It's like its own thing. And I'm like, well, then what is it? And then it's like, there was just all these random games being thrown out there. It's like, it's a little bit of this, it's a little bit of that, it's a little bit of this and that. I'm like, okay. And then once the previews came out, that's when I was like, okay, this is not good. And yeah, it was so funny, dude. Because even though it's only been like a year, I will never forget when I don't know who it was at IGN. I think it doesn't matter now, but I remember the IGN gameplay of Redfall came out, and people were so desperate for Redfall to not be total and utter shit that they were like, whoever's playing this game at the preview event doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. They're shitty. They don't know how to play games. And I remember like there was all this controversy around it where it's like, IGN, they're hiring people that don't know how to play. It's like, no, it turns out that it wasn't the person playing the game. That's the game, dude. I mean, don't get me wrong. The IGN gameplay probably could have been better, but it's like, that's the game. Like, it looks that way because it looks like it plays that way because that's how it actually plays. IP Gaming says, let's not forget MBG. Those games had PS5 versions in development. They had the scrap. Starfield was supposed to come to PS5. Yeah, that's true. I think Starfield, again, I still think it's going to come to PS5. You know what would be batshit insane about Starfield coming, if it does come to PS5? You know what would be batshit insane? And I would be so curious if we were to find this out, is if, you know, because there was a PS5 version in development for years, and supposedly Microsoft had them scrap it. Surely they still have that, right? Like, when we use the word scrap or like cancel, like they didn't just like literally delete it. They just left it be, right? Because I'm almost thinking like, what if they did have them delete it? They're like, no, delete that shit. It's over. You're not making games for PS5 anymore. No, that would be too stupid. They like Microsoft had to have known. Yeah, I was gonna say that would be totally by scrapped incomplete build. Okay, could you just imagine if it was like, no, we just literally deleted the PS5 version. We have to start all over again. I guess that doesn't even really make sense because the game is finished, you know? But yeah, that Redfall scenario, I gotta admit, like, I've been following Microsoft, you know, a long time. I've been following Xbox for a long, like that. I think that may have been, I think, the craziest thing I've seen. And I think what made it so crazy is again, it's just the fact that like Microsoft went a year and a half without any games, dude. And so much was riding on that one game. And it was as disastrous as it gets. It would be like if Sony went a whole year without a first party game, a year and a half, until, let's say, like Sony doesn't drop a single first party game until May of 2025, and it's just a fucking train wreck. That's like, let's say they don't drop Concord until May 2025, and Concord is just a like horrible bad game. Just a mess of a game. It'd be like, oh my God, dude. Oh my God, what are you doing? I almost felt kind of bad for them, man. But so Josh, thank you for taking me for that walk down memory lane. All right, we got Josh here with another super chat saying, but if they didn't know what was going on, then where did the confidence come from to make it their one more thing banger announcement? Pure incompetence. Yeah, that's a good point, Josh. Yeah, and that's why that's why I said a little bit earlier that I feel like I kind of take back what I said, where my initial thought was maybe Microsoft just wasn't aware of the situation with Redfall, getting back to that conversation. But what you're saying, I think, makes more sense, and that's why I kind of take that back, because you know what? They definitely had to know to a certain extent. Like, at the very minimum, they saw the game, you know? And my whole thing with Microsoft, and why I just am like, I'm not surprised anymore. And I feel like I haven't been surprised in a long time. I still react. Like, there will always be a reaction from me, but it's not true, genuine surprise. Is because I knew when Redfall came out and when the previews started coming out, I knew when Microsoft, whether it be Phil Spencer or anybody else, Matt Booty, whoever's in charge, to look at these games and determine if it's looking good enough. They're looking at it through Game Pass eyes. And that's why I'm not surprised anymore. No matter how surprised they may act, at the end of the day, it's like, but are you really surprised, MBG? It's like, well, no, because they're looking at everything through Game Pass eyes. And as far as I'm concerned, that bar is low. It always will be low. And the reason it'll always be low is because of the cost to entry. The cost to entry to Game Pass is $11. So what that means is anytime you see a game, I mean, and it's natural, it's human psychology, right? Like, if it's my job to run Xbox Game Studios and I visit a studio like I visit Bethesda Studios and I see a game like Redfall, I only have to ask myself one question: Does that game look like it's worth at least $11? And if the answer is yes, then all right, we're good. Ship it. That's the reality of Microsoft. That's been the reality of Microsoft since 2016, 2017. And again, I'm not saying that there aren't games. I'm not saying that all Microsoft games are like the max value is $11. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying it becomes a lot easier to not see the flaws on display so obviously. Because I have to, like, listen, I have to imagine. Think of it this way. Imagine Game Pass didn't exist and Microsoft goes into, you know, they go to do their rounds with Bethesda and they see Redfall and they have to ask themselves, like, we're going to sell this game at $70. Like, is that going to be worth $70? I mean, I'll tell you right now, who the hell would walk out of that room being like, oh yeah, that's totally worth $70? I'd be concerned. Like, you would have to imagine they would at least be like, oh, I don't know, maybe $40. But is it even worth $40? Now, this is the difference between how Microsoft operates and how like Sony and Nintendo operate. Although Nintendo's still a little bit different, but that's how I view it. You know, I just you see that's the thing is, Josh. I don't even think it's I mean, there is a layer of incompetence at Microsoft, undoubtedly. This is what I've been talking about for many years, where I don't understand how a company can be this powerful, this resource rich, and struggle this much to just make good games, to just somewhat consistently, to just do well by their console. I don't like that will always baffle me. And the only thing that I think that will ultimately come down to is incompetence, where there's just not enough people in high enough places at that company that understand fundamentally like what needs to be done to actually achieve that. But I think by this point in time, it's more like I said, it's through the Game Pass lens. They got the Game Pass glasses on, man, or goggles or whatever. Anytime they're looking at a game, they're simply asking themselves, is this worth at least $11? But that's assuming Game Pass is still the major priority. Sony's not doing that. That's just the reality. Sony, like, I'm not saying every single game Sony has put out is worth every dollar that they're asking you for. I'm not saying that. I mean, it varies. But, you know, I just think it's pretty safe to say that most of the games that Sony has put out are worth more than $11. Certainly. If there is a showcase happening in May, when do I think PlayStation will announce it? Let me see here. I want to say that if Sony really is going to have a showcase next month, which I think they are, I'm going to lock my prediction is it's going to happen May 23rd, which is a Thursday. That's my prediction. And it's very specific, but I'm going to lock that in. The calm before the E3 storm. Well, yeah, there is Summer Game Fest, which I'll stream that. I think it hasn't been officially confirmed, but I think Xbox's showcase is happening on June 9th. I'll stream that. I'll stream as many events as I can within reason. I don't know if I'm going to stream like a Ubisoft event, though. Like, I don't know. I just don't get hyped enough from these individual publishers, really. I think, yeah, Nintendo announced they're having like an indie show tomorrow. I don't know. I don't mean to sound like I'm complaining so much. It's just there are occasionally these times where the news cycle screeches to a halt. Like, I won't lie to you guys. Like, I would rather be talking about some other PlayStation news today that's not about the PS5 Pro again. But other than Dave the Diver, you know what I mean? We're going to hate watch the Xbox showcase. Absolutely, we're going to hate watch that shit. Fuck Xbox. Xbox sucks.